This is Pod Populi, podcast for the people.
Welcome to the Tragedy Academy, a show created to bridge societal divides in a judgment-free zone using candor and humor. My name is Jay. We are joined today by Jessica Baladad. How you doing today, Jessica?
I am fantastic. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited to have you here. Jessica is a 6-year breast cancer survivor, founder of Feel for Your Life, and an advocate for patient education, AI innovation, and healthcare reform. She's been featured on Good Morning America, USA Today, and NFL's Crucial Catch campaign. And now you're slumming it with the Tragedy Academy. So let's do this thing. How you doing?
Great.
Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, and then we can kind of go from there.
Sure. When I was 18 years old, I accidentally stumbled upon a lump in my breast. And I thought, oh my God, am I too young to get breast cancer? I knew it ran on my dad's side of the family, but I thought, is 18 too young? Well, as it turned out, it was a benign tumor called a fibroadenoma, which occurs in women of menstruating ages. And I had it removed. So I had a lumpectomy at 18. And it was that experience that put me in the habit of performing monthly self-exams.
I'm a hypochondriac. If I was in your case and I was a woman, I would have been doing hourly exams, and it would have been weird because I could not handle that after that going forward.
Well, it's so funny you say that because this was 2003, and this was the days before, like, Google was a thing, but it wasn't Dr. Google so much. We had to leave it to our own anxiety to try to figure out what to do. And this, I know, right? So it was a mess. But let's see, 2018, 15 years later, I'm 33 years old. I'm performing an intentional self-exam in the shower. And I go over the right side, everything's okay. I go over the left side, and I found a lump in my breast. I thought, oh my God, like, is this it? Is this breast cancer? I'm like, no. I'm like, no way. It's probably another one of those benign tumors. Mm-hmm. I was in the best shape of my life. I thought breast cancer only runs on my dad's side of the family. I'm probably fine. I had just gone to the doctor where she did a clinical exam of my breasts and said nothing to me about it. And I thought, I'm like, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm just, I did go to Dr. Google and I looked at the symptoms and I thought, well, I just have a lump. And I'm reading through the other symptoms. It's talking about like bleeding from your nipples, discharge. It's talking about having a rash, dimpling, puckering of the breast. And I didn't have any of that. And I thought, well, it's just a lump. So it's just something hormonal. The doctor didn't say anything. And that was what put me at ease. Like, the doctor didn't say anything.
It's amazing how we can justify our situation through going backwards through the scenario. Like, it's almost like reverse Tetris to make ourselves feel better, where we take those pieces and we make them fit into what will give us the most comforting scenario at that moment, even if it is blindly looking away from what could be, life-saving care with the extra steps that could be taken. I am a professional at talking myself out of the doctor, like, hands down. And it's a phenomenon that seems to be, honestly, more to Americans than any other country I've seen, that we will get into a situation where we will justify why we shouldn't go to the doctor.
Right. And I'm sure like the reasons of healthcare and cost and insurance have everything to do with that too.
That's on the list of things to discuss today.
Yeah. Oh boy. So it was stage 2 breast cancer. It took me 4 months to get a proper diagnosis. And I later learned that the original provider who did find the lump and didn't tell me about it thought she's too young for breast cancer, and thought not to tell me about it or let me get a second opinion or go get a scan or an exam or anything. She
That's
just
bold.
thought I was too young. I know, right?
I'm not that confident in anything. Like with someone's life on the line, I just could not make that decision. So, casually, I guess. Well, I'm not saying they did. If I've seen a million of one thing, I'm not going to assume that one more, that is exactly the opposite is that. But at the end of the day, we have to advocate for ourselves.
Absolutely. That's what I've learned throughout this entire process. Every year, 12,000 women under the age of 40 will be diagnosed with breast cancer. And yet mammograms are automatically, generally approved, screening mammograms are approved for women 40 and above. You don't have to jump through hoops. You don't have to get a referral once you turn 40. But yet so many women under the age of 40 get diagnosed with breast cancer every year so young. And we have to put up a fight to be taken seriously because they blame our hormones. They blame stress. They blame caffeine. They say you need to lose weight. You just got to jump through hoops and hurdles just to be seen, heard, and understood sometimes in your care, especially when you're young.
That's very disempowering to sit there. Yeah, and be told that you're not the ultimate say in how you feel and what your reality is, especially when it comes to your health. Women get disempowered a lot in these scenarios, especially when it comes to, things like we had endometriosis. We had an episode on it, had Rachel McDonald. She was amazing. And she talked about through the entire process, she wanted to get a hysterectomy. And she had chronic pain and things like that. And she was told she could not have that because she would regret, not being a woman. And she said, at that moment, she said she actually understood what it meant to be trans to a certain degree. To be told she wasn't who she was if she went through a surgery was very, again, disempowering. It took away her ability to have her own self. And I can't imagine it's anything different than being, in that chair being told that you're not capable of making a decision about whether or not you need preventative care. Because that's what we're talking about. We can't get preventative care for young women that are showing more susceptibility to breast cancer. I mean, what's the point in not providing that care as an insurer if the ultimate price is a bigger price tag for that particular person's treatment? That's a really broken system. Sorry.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And there's a statistic that they go to. 60 to 80% of lumps that a woman may find in her breast are actually benign. So a woman, and I promote self-exams. Insurance companies don't want you doing self-exams because you find a lump, statistically speaking, it may be more inclined to be benign the younger you are. Of course, always talk to your doctor about that. So you go to the doctor feels the lump, the doctor orders a mammogram. The mammogram's really not sure because you have dense breasts, or young women have dense breasts. And so that requires more exams. And then it's just like, we're not sure. Maybe you need a biopsy. So that's costing the insurance company money. Every time you go to the doctor, you get a scan or an exam. So they come down on the medical providers and are like, hey, we'll keep you out of network if you keep referring women to get all of these tests done because you're costing us money. So it's not always the provider. I feel like the provider, the doctor, the nurse practitioner is under pressure by either the hospital system or the insurance company to, kind of make a judgment call in that moment. I mean, I don't want to beat up on doctors because there are so many wonderful, good ones, but I understand they're under a lot of stress and pressure to answer to other people who are not just their patients.
When you have to treat to a set of codes, ICD-10 codes, in order to properly diagnose someone to get them the treatment or paid for by their insurance company, you're already at a loss. You can't holistically take care of someone if you have to categorize everything that's happening to them because no two people are the same, right? We've taken away the ability of the doctor to have an empathetic role and to discuss openly what the patient is going through and not having them to adapt the prescriptive care to some other formula that will allow them to get them just enough to survive on, right? They might have to hawk a couple of cars or do something in between, but just to get enough of that chemotherapy Or I think like my mom's been on Keytruda forever. She was on Keytruda forever for lung cancer. And man, when I saw the bill for that, like my heart stopped. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like how do people live?
I know so many primary care physicians, they're tired of insurance companies just screwing them over and not paying out, and the stress and financial burden that their patients are seeing. So they've adopted policies and payment structures where it's kind of like a subscription-based service. Like, hey, pay us, X number of dollars every month. You can get this many exams, so many x-rays, this much blood work, come see us, for well visits. We can do phone calls, telehealth. They're completely changing how they interact with patients because they're tired of reporting to the insurance companies that are just jacking them around and, not and trying to control how they provide the care that they know is necessary.
I know this is something that you're very, very passionate about, and you've spoken in front of, I believe, Congress
yes.
at one point about the gap that is insurance and medical care. I'd like to think that we operate on a pendulum. And we all know that there's been recent developments in the insurance world and the consumer and the patients and advocates and somebody taking things into their own hands, which I would never endorse anything like that.
Right.
But what I do believe is that all things operate on a pendulum, and a pendulum has to have a stopping point. And if you strangle your society into a position where they can never care for themselves and they're a victim to their own medical, eventually it's going to hit a breaking point and it's going to come back the other way. I think in my mind, what I would like to see happen will come up right after this. You like that? That was slick, wasn't it?
That was good. Yeah, that was really good. You played that off really well.
So, welcome back. You guys want to know what we're going to talk about? I think we're going to step into the world of AI and medical. So I want to give you a chance to tell us what your application is and what you see coming technology-wise to the medical field.
I love talking about this because, when I found the lump in my breast, I just felt all alone. And when I was diagnosed with cancer, I had friends who were like planning their futures with their spouses, their weddings, having babies, stuff like that. I'm looking at my first ultrasound with my husband and we're looking at a breast tumor together. Like we're planning my will and, things like that. So it was a completely different experience for my early 30s. Absolutely. Absolutely. And when I created Feel for Your Life, I created the tools and resources I wish I had before and during my diagnosis. So when I came out to my friends and said, hey, I've got breast cancer, I'm going through chemotherapy. So if you see this bald baddie running around, that would be me. Just, mind your own business, at Walmart or grocery store. And so many of my friends were like, how did you even know to get diagnosed or get tested? And I'm like, well, I do my self-exams every month. Don't you? And it was crickets. And I thought, oh God, this is a problem. And I learned that women did not know about self-exams. One, no one ever taught them. Two, they were ashamed of their bodies and didn't feel comfortable touching themselves.
Body dysmorphia is a thing.
Absolutely. And three, they were uninsured or underinsured, and they were afraid to address any problems or issues. So they would just kind of bury their head in the sand, like, oh, if I ignore it, there's nothing wrong. And so I thought, yeah.
Isn't that like turning your back on an axe murderer and going red light, green light?
Right. Yeah, I know.
I'm going to peek at you for a second. Why are you 3 steps closer? Well, because you weren't looking. You weren't looking.
Yeah.
We do that though. And we don't want to care for ourselves for that fear. So tell me what it is that you did to bring people together in this process.
Well, Feel for Your Life first started as a social media movement where I talked about doing self-exams and how to advocate for yourself to get screened. Then the pandemic hit And, we didn't know it was going to happen.
Screening time in the world.
Right, sort of. Yeah.
You'd think. I mean, there's plenty of time to address self in that moment.
There really is. There was time, but accessibility was missing. So when I was working on the NFL's Crucial Catch campaign, I learned that women were getting diagnosed at later stages because they were missing their screenings. And they were missing their screenings because they were too afraid to go to the doctor because no one knew what COVID was or how you could really get it or how contagious it was. People were just staying inside and staying home. And I just had released this statistic today on my Instagram saying that the average metastatic breast cancer rate was increasing since 2004 at 1% every year. During 2021 into 2022, like during COVID, it went up 9% because women were missing screenings. And I thought, well, a self-exam saved my life. Yes, still get screened, go to the doctor. They are taking precautions. But let's talk about self-exams and why they're so important, especially for women under 40. So I created Feel for Your Life and made it an app to show women how to perform a self-exam, let her track her progress and keep up with things, and set monthly reminders so that she would never forget. We were all glued to our phones during the pandemic. So I thought, well, I'm going to use my pandemic time to learn how to create an app. And so I did. And then this spring, I launched the AI feature. It can take your pathology reports and translate them into terms that you understand and automatically populate questions for you to ask your doctor.
Now we're talking. And this is what I was waiting for. The introduction of AI to medical, right? A lot of people have put AI in this scenario that they have fear of its capabilities, yada, yada, yada. And I try to explain to my friends, I'm like, it's a box of letters and numbers. In fact, it's everyone we can think of for now. We've shoved it in there and we're asking it for answers. It doesn't have malintent. All it's going to do is be able to analyze, compile, and create the correct questions based on the information, right? And in my mind, we are on the precipice of change in that we have the opportunity to level set our medical care, that gap that exists with the money made through the use of AI in the medical field, because that will advance and create a gap. There will be money saved, and that money saved should be put to good use, not called profit, right? I think that's one of the things that we're up against. I also believe that AI is going to actually give a chance for doctors to be doctors. Right. It's out of their hands after that. They get the amount of choices that are statistically correct and get to work with the patient. They're not sitting in the back seat reading through all of these different ICD-10 or 9 codes. It's already figured out for them. Now they can address it personally, empathetically. You ever seen a doctor cry with a patient? Probably not. Very rarely. Right?
I've seen it, but yeah, it's not very often.
It's not commonplace. How hard would it be to have to be a professional and not be able to share the emotion as well? I think that we're allowed to come back to that, given that opportunity, because we put in the time for what exactly that you're discussing. You know, that those genome mapping and being able to find out, you know, whether or not someone should be screened earlier is something that is invaluable.
Right. And what we're seeing right now with AI, so 40% of women have dense breast tissue, and density in breast tissue, it's kind of like finding a piece of salt in a jar full of glitter is what having dense breast is. Like if you're trying to find, if you're trying to find a lump or a tumor or an abnormality in a mammogram, and a woman has dense breast tissue, it can be extremely difficult. So what AI is doing is actually helping radiologists and medical providers find abnormalities that they may miss. So it could mean that women don't have to jump through as many hoops, that they don't have to go through as many invasive procedures, and that they can have care that is catered to their specific needs and cost them less money. There is a slight problem. What I've seen, some hospitals, they're able to offer the AI to kind of look over the doctor's shoulder and, kind of sort of serve as a second opinion. But some medical practices are doing it for free, and others are like, we feel like this should be an upcharge, but there's not a code for it. So it's not being billed to insurance because there's some of that going on right now. But
I would literally hand them my phone and say, use my chat GPT, don't charge me. I would be so mad. Like, what are you trying to do right now? Like, that's free. You can't gatekeep knowledge. This is why the education system will crumble. It will crumble because of the readily accessed knowledge base that is out there now. You don't need to go to college to learn about the stuff they teach at Harvard. Doesn't mean that you're missing, you might be missing out on the education style, but the information is now there. Like lawyers, it's probably a lot easier to be a lawyer because you don't have to go through a pile of books anymore. Right? AI is supplementing so many things, and you can't tell people they're going to pay extra. Like, hey, you can get diagnosed or diagnosed light. Like, it's just as good, but you might not get it caught. That pisses me off. Like, is this the premium version?
Right. It kind of sounds like that, right?
Oh, and I think no.
Some medical facilities are like, why would we withhold? Like, why would we gatekeep this? Why would we do that?
Got an extra $5? I'll tell you what's on this card.
Right. Some facilities, it's actually $40. Some facilities are starting to have. Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh. When the screening for the mammogram itself under the Affordable Care Act should be free. That's what it was created for, so that preventative screenings could be free. So why would you charge a woman, hey, we can read your mammogram for $40, even though you probably came in here because, the cost didn't keep you from coming here. But by the way, we can upcharge you $40 to get a better reading on it. And it's like, what
the hell is wrong with us?
Right. I know.
That doesn't make any sense that we will put so much between health and happiness. Right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Why can't we just see that there is an empathetic level that we have to live on as humans? Right? We have a really good ability to walk by things and not look at them. Like, people walk by homeless people all the time, people on drugs or, that are in some kind of trial or tribulation in their life. And we can walk by repeatedly. Can't do it when you look at them. You have to admit, maybe I don't have it so bad. And my victim status is going to disappear because everybody's a victim of some kind in some role. Right. And this is something that I wanted to actually talk to you about, since we've discussed AI and we've discussed how women can, find their, a lump in their breast and do self-exams. But how does one find out they have breast cancer and hit their knees and realize that life is going to change now for them? What do they do to survive that part of it or thrive through it?
For me, I hit the ground running because I knew that if this could happen to me, it was happening to other women. And thank God I did self-exams. And thank God I knew of my family history and I understood my breast density. And I thought, okay, how many women don't know this about themselves?
So many.
Yeah. I mean, I'm from the South. I live in the Nashville area. The women, I asked my friends, what did you learn about your breasts growing up? And they said, nothing. And I'm like,
they're lying. They learned you better cover them up.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
I'm from the South. I'm from a place called Okeechobee, Florida, on a dairy. Okay. That's all they heard was you better cover them up.
Right. So women actually, when in that nothing, I found three things. They have them, that they exist. They have a function. And yes, keep them covered up. That's what we learned about our breasts. So there's a shame-based rhetoric around our bodies that actually what it ends up doing throughout adulthood, we're ignorant to how to care for ourselves. We don't know necessarily what to do, how to navigate things like healthcare and insurance. So I saw a problem. I hit the ground running. I'm like, I'm going to address these issues. I'm going to talk about these issues. I'm going to be candid and completely transparent and vulnerable with other people about, my experience and what I go through. So, I overshared my experience on social media to great benefit to others. And now I have, women all over the world who reach out to me for help, and I give them the resources that they need to take care of themselves.
They really need somebody like you. We'll be right back here in just a moment. Welcome back, guys. So we're here with Jessica Baladad, and we're going to talk about something a little bit different now. I want to talk about high school education, Feel for Your Life Act. Can you tell us about that?
Well, when I learned how important self-exams were and that 40% of cancers were diagnosed after a woman finds a lump, 40% of breast cancers are diagnosed after a woman feels a lump. It's from a woman feeling a lump and finding it, whether it's on accident or doing a self-exam. I thought, all right, let's address these other discrepancies. I contacted my legislator in the state of Tennessee through the Tennessee General Assembly, and I told him my story and I gave him some facts and statistics, and he said, hey, come talk to me. So I did, and we got together and created the Feel for Your Life Act, which would require students at the high school level to learn about how to do self-breast exams, testicular exams, and skin exams, what to look for, how to find abnormalities, who to contact, how to know how to find a medical provider, how to basically take care of themselves going into adulthood. Because we know teenagers are hyper aware of their bodies as they're going through changes in puberty and whatnot. So let's show them how to take care of themselves when they get out of high school and into the real world and have to figure out things like health insurance and making that doctor appointment, because mom and dad aren't going to do it for you the rest of your life.
Well, I like that you're utilizing the school system to create a foundation and a generation so that they can go ahead and pass that on when they have children, and it starts to be addressed at earlier ages, like you're saying. Because, I mean, let's be honest, there's not many families that are in such a great state that they're even thinking about whether or not their daughter has that, with everything that we have going on in the world. But if we have all the children in one location at once, why not discuss that and give them that ability to, like I said, have a foundation going forward in this generation versus that scattering of don't look at yourself, don't talk, anything under a shirt is nobody's business, and even your own. Like, it seems weird, but it is, which is odd in and of itself. It creates body dysmorphia and other mental issues, and probably springs forward a whole lot of other darker sides of people from repression. Who knows, right? But you find yourself in front of these young women and these young men at this age, and it's really hard to accept the gravity of things at those ages, right? You can kind of dismiss things, laugh about it, and say whatever. What have you done when you're interacting with them to make this something that is more enjoyable, or enjoyable is probably the wrong word, but something interesting, fascinating, or to keep them engaged through it?
Right. Well, you have to meet them where they are. You can't just throw statistics and things at them to, with adults, when you say 1 in so many people, 1 in 8 women will get breast cancer in their lifetime. To a teenager, that doesn't really mean anything because
they don't know 8 people yet. That's the way I look at it.
And they haven't grasped the reality of their mortality either. They're invincible. They have their whole lives in front of them. So what you have to present them is with stories and statistics, people in their family, understanding their family history. Like, how many of you know someone in your family who's had cancer? And everyone generally does, no matter what kind of cancer it is. Or maybe they have a friend whose loved one who has had cancer, or they've heard about it. So you relate it to their level and their experience of the relationship with someone who has had. who has had cancer, and you kind of bring it to their level like that emotionally and why it's important for them to be mindful of that. But you don't have to scare the crap out of them. Like, you better get screened and you better remember,
like in the 80s when Coach brought out the video of what could happen if you had premarital sex. You're like,
exactly.
You don't do that. They did that in the Army too. We're like, whoa.
Look at these photos.
Yes.
Like, yeah,
no
you
more.
don't have to do it, because what they'll do in their fight, flight, freeze response is that they'll run away from it and just not acknowledge it whatsoever, and they completely forget about it. So if you do scare them, you'll scare them out of knowledge that's important for them to absorb. So you just bring it down on their level and make it more relational, and to be mindful of it rather than, you better do this, you have to do this, you must do this. Because again, it creates that shame-based rhetoric. And, I could go into a whole thing about shame, and, they'll reject that and see this badness about themselves. And you don't want to do that with them.
So that's not a bad place to kind of hang our hat for a moment. Shame is something that is littered throughout everything that we have in life. Our feelings are very attached to it. And I didn't think about it until you said this, but there's got to be a certain amount of personal shame at getting a disease, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say there's something to be ashamed of, but at that point, you become the 1 in the 8.
Right.
That's a completely different scenario. Tell me about that. How do we help people with that?
So many women blame themselves for getting breast cancer. And then even externally, people who can't handle the reality of your mortality. So here I am again, my friends, early 30s, they're, getting married, having babies, or having second children. I'm looking death in the face, basically. Like, what is my life going to become, or how much do I have left of my life? And there's something in the cancer community, we call it cancer ghosting, where you are ghosted immediately upon telling someone that you have cancer because they can't handle it. They are not there in their lives. Yeah. So you feel this badness. Shame is a badness about yourself. So it's like, did I do this to myself? Is it because I did this? Was it my lifestyle? Was it because I didn't do something? I had a friend who came to me. He was like, oh, you drank cow's milk and you were on birth control. So, that's probably why you got it. And
did
people
you headbutt them? Because they deserved a headbutt for that. Like, I'm so mad. Like, if I watch somebody say something like that, and I'm saying that doesn't mean I wouldn't actually do that. I just like to go over the top about things. But some people mean well in their descriptions of things. And I think you've hit on something very important. And that's when you said mortality, right? We don't discuss mortality. The most guaranteed item in existence, we refuse to discuss at any given moment, to the degree that when one of our loved ones has a mortality crisis, we will immediately turn away because we're so afraid of facing our own. But the problem is that sends a different message than you're not okay. That sends the message to the person with cancer that they're not okay. They're not in your mind. They're not privy to that discussion amongst yourself or whatever it is you're feeling. All they know is that their cancer has caused you to look away from them. And that's something to remember, right? At least in my mind, that's how I envision it.
Yeah. I mean, you just nailed it perfectly. I couldn't have even said that any better. So I can tell you definitely understand this topic and have been affected by it. And I just wish more people were just more empathetic and informed that you are. I learned to approach things with humor. So many of my friends had questions, and I was just vulnerable, empathetic toward their concerns. Even the people who took it upon themselves to guess why I could have gotten cancer so young. I mean, it ran in my family. And I actually joke that it sprints in my family, even though we don't have a known gene mutation that's been discovered in our lineage. 14 women in my family have had breast cancer, and we don't have a name for the gene that could be mutated.
Unless you're living in a compound underneath high voltage wiring or something, it's kind of hard to pinpoint, something like that.
Right.
That's the only way I can see them actually having a good point.
Here's the thing, like my dad's side of the family is from Appalachia, Kentucky. They had coal mines. They grew their own crops. During the Industrial Revolution, if I go back several generations, they grew their own crops. They fed off their land, but they lived in a holler down the hill from a coal mine where they also were setting up gas lines. They call it Chemical Valley for a reason. So did something in that contribute to my family's, gene mutations? Probably, but we don't have proof. Why is a question that comes from your gut? I got to focus on what's happening in the present because why isn't going to get me to where I want to be. I have to look at what's happening now and where I want to be. So I can why myself to death, but it's not helpful.
No, it's not. There's also a Chinese philosophy that says worry is preposterous because it serves no purpose in the now. It is nothing but hypotheses about what might happen when you have zero control over it and you're not Nostradamus and you're not going to get it right. Just not going to happen. You might hit it in the right hemisphere, but anybody could do that. The time spent worrying about what might happen is taking away from the ability for you to race that gene, right? If yours is a sprinter, you better hit the ground and do some hamstring stretches. You don't have time to sit around and worry about it or wonder why me. And that's not to be insensitive. That's just to be practical, right?
Exactly.
Don't sit around and wait for somebody else, your breast cancer gene, to go sprinting off in front of you. Nobody likes to chase somebody from behind, right? Be proactive in it.
Right.
I do some self exams. Maybe you scare it away if you do that. Who knows?
Right. When you're empowered, fear, we think of it as this fight, flight, freeze response. I like to think of it as a tool to plan, prepare, and seek help. That's how I see fear. If I am afraid of something, then there three things are missing. I need a plan, I need to prepare that plan, and I need to seek help to execute that plan. That's how I see it.
Instantly go into a bubble. I go into an immediate bubble of action where all other things will fall away. And now I need to take a look at what it is. I was not this way my entire life. This is meditation is where I found that tool in order to take time and moments and realize that I'm choosing at any moment, no matter what I've got, to be a victim. Because life is life. There's going to be things that are going to happen. You can get cancer. You can lose a family member to things. You can end up disabled, tomorrow. But the fact of the matter is you've got to embrace what is the now, because you're not even guaranteed tomorrow anyway. You're mourning something that doesn't freaking exist, right?
Exactly.
Enjoy now. Plant a tree when you hit your knees and grow into something new. Educated, empowered, stronger, ready to help others. Not everybody is going to get breast cancer and come out and advocate and take the steps that you are, right? But you probably saw immediately that was your path, right?
Absolutely. Just the instant I just knew. I thought about my family who had been through breast cancer, and I'm like, well, it's my turn. Cancer ran in my family until it ran into me. So it's my turn to go up to bat and hit it out of the park. And, let's put a stop to this for good. And I just went to work. I decided, okay, I talked to my oncologist, same oncologist who treated my aunt and my grandmother was now treating me. I did, 16 rounds of chemotherapy. I did 24 rounds of radiation. I had a double mastectomy, a preventative hysterectomy, and I went through deep flap reconstruction. I have a cat that's misbehaving.
Oh, that is not going to bother me. I have a bull mastiff that comes in the studio all the time, so cat won't bother me in the slightest.
Okay.
This is called the Tragedy Academy. It's baked in crap can happen and I don't have to edit it out. I'm just like, there was a cut.
Okay.
Moving on.
All right. Cool. Good. Yeah. So I went with the most aggressive treatment plan and then went on a post-chemotherapy pill that I just finished up after 5 years. I did a test to see if I needed to be on it for another 5 years. And after talking with my doctor, it was not going to be effective. Basically, it was going to hurt me more than it was going to help me. So I discontinued that. Yeah.
Doing the same thing that chemo does. People don't realize that chemo has two purposes at the same time, to kill you and to kill cancer. Which one wins is which one wins. Like, that's how it is. The time is the factor. If the cancer dies first, you get to go on. If you die first, the cancer won. That's how it works. And it's really hard to live in that particular state.
Yeah, it's about facing reality and making difficult decisions when you can come to grips with what you're like, the reality. Like when you accept reality and you realize, okay, this is what I have control over and this is what I don't have control over. Like, I think it's empowered. You may have to make decisions you don't like, but you still get to make a decision and you still get to move forward with your autonomy at the very least. And I am grateful for all the wisdom I had around me and the people and the mindset that I just had going into this. You know, my family fought for me so that I could win this. And, and spread messages of advocacy. You know, because of my diagnosis, other women in my family have gone through and had prophylactic or preventative surgeries so that their risk is greatly reduced. You can't get it down to zero, no matter how many surgeries and what you have removed, but they know that their risk has dropped dramatically, because once it got into my generation of cousins, it just got a lot of people's attention. It's like, okay, now we see that the gene or whatever is now hitting our generation. So it's time to act and do something about it.
Do you remember in the gym, they used to have those banners on the wall and it would list off the number of years you were champion? 1988, this team, 1987, this team, 1963, this team. You guys deserve a fucking championship banner in your family where you can put down how many times you kicked breast cancer's ass, either through preventative care or straight punch to the face when you got to do it, right? That to me is a testament, right? I feel like we're given crossroads in life where we can make a decision as to what we can do going forward, or we can give in, right? And you chose to go forward. And what I'd like to find out is something when we come back here in just a moment. All right, welcome back, everybody. We're actually going to find out what makes Jessica tick behind breast cancer, because we need to have something that we're passionate about creatively. And I know that you happen to have a hobby that you love to do. And I'm only guessing that it probably brought you some kind of relief throughout this entire process. You like photography, right?
I do. I love photography. I love taking pictures of animals and sporting events, because those are subjects that can't talk back to you.
That's great.
You're right. I love to go to different zoos and take pictures of animals. And I mean, don't go to the zoo with me. It's not a trip to the zoo. It's Jessica's safari adventure, where I will sit in front of my...
You should get a hat. You should get a hat specifically for this. Like, it's not, that's it. I
got to get a hat.
If I see you on social media and you put up any pictures in the zoo and you're not wearing some kind of I'm a zookeeper hat, or I'm out in the safari taking pictures through the woods, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Okay. When I get a hat, I will tag you when I get a hat and I go and I take photos, as long as it doesn't get in the way of my camera and the lens that I'm using. Because sometimes I just have to.
Yeah. I think about that.
So as long as it's not blocking that or the shot that I'm trying to get, I'm good. But I mean, I am on the ground. I am upside down if I need to be. Like, I'm kind of like that weirdo at the aquarium or the zoo who will go through any lengths legally, questionably ethically, to get the shot that I want to get.
Are you at like a penguin's colonoscopy or what? Hold on a minute. What are we photographing here? Like, give them I'm kidding.
I have tricks to get animals' attention. Like, if they're sleeping, I know how to politely wake them up. They
was it an air horn?
It's not quite that abrasive. I shake my car keys, and there's something about shaking my car keys. Yeah, they'll perk up, they'll look around, red pandas especially. I feel bad. I'm like, y'all, I tried to get here early so that I knew you would be eating and be awake, but you're already back asleep. But I know you've been sleeping all night, so I'm going to shake my keys. Yeah, and I want you to just wake up for like 5 minutes really for me to get a shot. Mm-hmm.
It's an unnatural sound, so it immediately sparks attention. You won't hear in nature two pieces of metal smacking each other. So it's immediately going to cause that focus to change. That's super smart. So what is the craziest picture of an animal that you took or crazy animal that you took of?
I would say I was at an aquarium and I got a great shot of a shark. How do I describe the position I was in? Because I was like on the ground up under this bench to get this shot where the light was kind of beaming down on the shark. And I was in like this aquarium tunnel so I could shoot upward towards the shark and get this light that was from the outside beaming down. I had families like stepping over me, and my husband is just like, yeah, that's my wife. And this is before cancer, when I was actually pretty bold in life in general, so I
feel like you become after you get cancer. I would not care anybody. I would just not care if I had cancer and I was standing in the grocery store and somebody said something that I didn't like. I just like, I got cancer. So
filters. More filters were definitely removed after cancer for sure. Some were added, but most were removed because I'm pretty straightforward for the most part. But yeah, I would say this picture of a shark that I got at the Gatlinburg Aquarium, I know I had to go through great lengths to kind of do that because I was in a lot of people's way. And I said, just walk over me, walk around me, whatever. I don't care.
You were crawling through more field trip boogers and gum than anybody. How often did you get the flu after these excursions?
I've only had the flu 2 times in my life. Only twice in my life I've had the flu.
So you advanced immunity from crawling around on these gum-infested benches.
Yeah, apparently I don't catch colds very often, but I could catch cancer. So, I have a flawed immune system.
Whoops. Thanks, God.
Yes, thanks. Yeah.
Way to give that to me. So what I'd like to do now is give you a little bit of time to tell everybody where they can find you, what kind of tips that you have, for them on a day-to-day basis, and, just kind of wrap up from there.
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. If you want to connect with Feel for Your Life, just search it, Feel for Your Life. It comes right up in Instagram or Facebook. One thing about naming the app or naming the platform was the fact that the URL was available and all the social handles were available just as Feel for Your Life. And then I'm active on LinkedIn, just Jessica Baladad. You'll see me talk about a lot about healthcare reform and, advocacy for your breast health. And that said, there are like 5 little tips I want to leave everyone with. Number 1, do your self exams. And you can do that by downloading the Feel for Your Life app, absolutely free, in the App Store or the Google Play Store, or at feelforyourlife.com.
We'll have it in the show notes as well.
Thank you so much. Number 2, get screened or talk to your doctor about a screening routine. The American College of Radiology recommends having those conversations starting at the age 25, where you can talk about your risks and your disposition to breast cancer. Number 3, understand your breast density or talk to your doctor about your breast density. When you get your first mammogram is when you can figure that out. You can't feel your breast density. It's not palpable. You have to get an exam to figure out what your breast density is. Number 4, understand all of your family history to not just breast cancer, all cancers, because prostate cancer is related to breast cancer. They're both hormonally fueled. You can talk about, your risk for different diseases as well, but talk about all the different cancers in your family. Breast cancer isn't the only cancer that runs in my family. My family history tree of cancer looks like a Christmas tree with all the different colors.
The company that was dumping in the holler. Like, that is a whole different episode. Like, I went to basic training at a place called Fort McClellan, Alabama. It's now closed down, and they have the Fort McClellan Health Registry Act because they had guys crawling through nuclear, biological, chemical, all sorts of stuff out there because that's where they were training as well. And a lot of people got cancer, kidney issues, tumors, you name it.
Wow.
They showed up later in life. So it's not a very far stretch to think that something like that could be what alters the DNA going forward, right? We don't escape generation to generation exposure to something that can cause life-changing or alter DNA going forward. So, honestly, that could be where it stems from. Who knows?
Right. Yeah. Who knows? And I was going to say, last thing, get a doctor that you like and trust and can talk to. The best doctor is the one that you will go and see and keep up with your appointments with. So, you work from there, get your exams, do your self exams, and, you can be the best advocate for yourself.
I can't thank you enough, Jessica. I like to think that when we bring people on, I always let them know that I believe that we're given opportunities in life to be our authentic self, right? And that means that we become at that point a lighthouse. Once you find who you are, and I believe that when we go through those crossroads where we hit our knees, we actually find out who we are, what makes us tick, what the important things are. And it looks like you've embodied those and you've now stood up and you've become a lighthouse for other people to find their way. They might have their own pathway to getting there, but they see that you've taken on something so important and you've done it on such a stage that if anybody needs help, they may not even need to come ask you. All they have to do is look at the path that you walked. And I appreciate that you're leaving this path to these places that people can get treatment. It's a very rare gift that people get in life. And I appreciate that you've taken that on full force.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you, and it keeps me encouraged and just affirms for me that I'm in the right space doing what I need to be doing.
Awesome. I absolutely love that. And remember, everybody, be cool and keep learning.